Welcome to History American. This is a space for conversation and reflection, where we explore scientific, social, environmental, political, economic, and statistical topics, as well as current events and stories. In every episode, we analyze and break down key events to help us better understand the reality around us. Find us for free on your favorite platform. You can also support this podcast by becoming a supporter of this documentary series or directly via PayPal. You can find all the details in the description of this content. Follow us, share, and join the conversation.
You know, it is always a really fascinating exercise to dig into these files with you.
Oh, absolutely. And today's deep dive is, well, it's wild. I want you to picture something for me. Picture a tiny, just incredibly cramped office. The year's 1930.
Okay, 1930. Got it. Yeah.
And the secretary of what is supposedly this big international sports governing body, he is literally living at his desk.
Wait, like actually living there?
Literally residing in the office. I mean, he's there with his spouse, and they have this whole menagerie of pets because, you know, the organization just cannot afford to pay him enough to even rent a normal apartment.
That is just, I mean, it's a phenomenal mental image.
It really is.
Yeah.
The space was so chaotic, so cramped, that they couldn't even hold official meetings there. They had to go down the street to local cafes just to talk about the rules of a simple game.
Which is wild when you consider the sheer scale of what this exact same entity would eventually turn into. I mean, back in the 1930s, international sports governance was basically a hobby.
Right, like an amateur club.
Exactly. It was run by this tiny handful of European administrators, and their biggest concern was just making sure the teams knew which dirt field to show up to.
And what time the referee would actually blow the whistle.
Right.
But today, you know, for this deep dive, we are wading into the totally shadowy, frankly, conspiratorial underworld of international soccer.
It is the granddaddy of all sports conspiracies.
It really is. We are going to track how this governing body, which again was just meant to oversee a basic game played by kids all over the world, how it transformed itself into a multi-billion-dollar global empire.
An empire that got hopelessly entangled in like mafia-style syndicates, you know?
Oh, completely. Yeah. Massive geopolitical vote buying, high-stakes political interference. We're going to trace how this whole thing caught the very aggressive attention of international intelligence operatives, the IRS, and eventually the FBI.
And you know, the crazy thing is, this isn't just some historical autopsy.
No, not at all.
The mechanics of this corruption, they are actively echoing right now, today.
Precisely. We're going to look at how these deep-rooted controversies are playing out right now, today, on July 6, 2026, right smack in the middle of the current World Cup.
Yeah, we really need to examine whether the foundational culture of this organization ever actually changed, or if, you know, the currency of influence just shifted.
Right, like moving from briefcases full of cash to just the immense weight of geopolitical leverage.
Exactly. But to really understand the modern crisis we're seeing today, you have to understand the architecture of the original syndicate.
Yeah, because that leap from a guy living in his office with his pets to a multi-billion-dollar behemoth, that didn't just happen by accident.
No, it was engineered. And that engineering really kicks off in earnest around 1974.
In 1974, that is the pivotal year. That's when a Brazilian lawyer named João Havelange gets elected president of the organization.
Right, João Havelange.
And up until João Havelange, the focus of this governing body was, you know, really insulated. It was basically a gentleman's club focused on Europe and South America.
And the money involved was negligible. It was nothing.
But João Havelange, he didn't look at it and see a gentleman's club. He saw this massive, entirely untapped global market.
Because João Havelange had a very specific kind of grand vision. He recognized that soccer wasn't just a sport, it was a universal language.
Yeah, completely.
He wanted to take this sporting body and turn it into something that looked like a sovereign nation. Or at least like the United Nations, right?
Sure. Wow, yeah, that's a huge ambition.
He envisioned this structure with its own internal governing body, its own distinct political elections, its own courts and judiciary.
And massive global development initiatives, right? He knew from his time with the International Olympic Committee that if you control the world's most popular spectacle, you basically control an asset that politicians will pay almost anything for.
Exactly. But let's break down how João Havelange actually achieved that expansion, because the mechanics are really crucial for you, the listener, to understand.
So he doubled the number of teams that could qualify for the World Cup.
All right.
He expanded the tournament to 32 countries.
Right, and he opened up membership to over 200 nations and territories.
Which is huge, because suddenly countries all over Africa, Asia, North America, they all have a massive vested interest in this organization.
And with that incredible geographic expansion comes just a tidal wave of revenue.
Right.
I mean, a tidal wave.
To give some context, when João Havelange took over in 1974, the organization's revenue was what, hovering around $25 million?
Roughly.
Yeah, and by the end of his term in 1998, they had roughly $4 billion in the bank.
4 billion. With a B.
It's just staggering.
And that exponential growth, it's directly tied to the birth of modern sports marketing. You have to remember, before the 1970s, television broadcasting rights were not the staggering commodities that they are today.
Right, because satellite television was just starting to connect the globe.
Exactly. And João Havelange realized he held the monopoly on literally the only event that the entire planet watched simultaneously.
So he brings in these massive corporate sponsorships. He chops the tournament up into these highly exclusive television rights packages.
But this is exactly where the architecture of corruption gets laid down.
Yeah.
When you have billions of dollars suddenly flooding into a private organization and there is absolutely no strict external governmental oversight, the temptation to skim off the top becomes totally institutionalized.
And the mechanism for that skimming, it was allegedly outsourced, right?
Oh, heavily outsourced. Under João Havelange's leadership, the organization partnered intimately with this Swiss sports marketing company called International Sport and Leisure.
International Sport and Leisure.
Their mandate was just to handle the incredibly lucrative sales of the television rights to air the World Cup.
Which, you know, on paper, that just seems like standard corporate delegation.
It does. But decades later, massive internal and external investigations revealed this staggering kickback scheme.
Yeah, during the 1980s and 1990s, João Havelange and his closest associates allegedly accepted over $40 million in direct bribes from International Sport and Leisure.
$40 million. And the mechanics of this kickback scheme are really fascinating because they establish a baseline culture for everything that follows.
So how did it actually work?
Well, International Sport and Leisure desperately wanted the exclusive rights to market the World Cup because they could turn around and sell those rights to TV networks for just an astronomical markup.
Right, the profit margins were insane.
Exactly. So to guarantee they kept that exclusive contract with the soccer governing body, they simply factored tens of millions of dollars in bribes right into their operating budget.
Wow. They just wrote it in as a line item.
Exactly. It was categorized internally as the cost of doing business. It was basically a toll booth.
A toll booth?
Yeah. If you wanted access to the world's game, you paid the toll directly to the administrators.
Man, and that entrenched this culture where access equaled kickbacks. Now, it took decades for internal ethics courts to finally rule on this in 2013.
Right.
And by that point, João Havelange was an elderly man, he was long out of power, and he never actually faced formal criminal punishment.
Which is often how these things go.
But his legacy was the system he built. Which leads us to the man who inherited that exact system, Joseph Sepp Blatter.
Joseph Sepp Blatter. Yes.
He had been João Havelange's intensely loyal protege. He served as the development officer, then he climbed the ranks to general secretary, and eventually he takes over as president of the entire organization.
Now, it is extremely crucial to note that internal investigations looking into that whole International Sport and Leisure scandal stated that Joseph Sepp Blatter was never directly implicated in receiving those early bribes.
Right, they didn't find his name on the checks.
Exactly. However, the investigators explicitly described his behavior during that era as, quote, clumsy. And they formally concluded that he had full knowledge of the kickbacks and just intentionally turned a blind eye to the whole thing.
Okay, so this introduces the primary operational question of our deep dive. How does a massive global organization function when the person sitting at the absolute pinnacle is fully aware of tens of millions of dollars in bribes and simply ignores it?
Right.
And this brings us to one of the most prominent and frankly most legally scrutinized conspiracy theories surrounding this group.
The mafia hypothesis.
Yes, the mafia hypothesis.
And we should clarify, the mafia hypothesis is not just some rhetorical flourish. It is a deeply analytical framework used by real investigators to understand the flow of power.
Right, it's how they mapped it out.
Exactly. The theory posits that this international soccer governing body was not just accidentally corrupt, It was deliberately, functionally structured to operate exactly like a global organized crime syndicate.
Like specifically La Cosa Nostra.
Yes. When law enforcement later began mapping out the organizational chart of this sporting body, they realized it was a nearly flawless mirror image of an Italian mafia family.
Let's actually lay out that mapping so you, the listener, can really see the structural parallels, because it's mind-blowing.
It really is.
In a traditional organized crime family, the hierarchy is designed to enforce absolute loyalty, right? And to insulate the leadership from legal consequences. So the very top, you have the boss.
Right. And in our sporting context, the boss is the president, Joseph Sepp Blatter.
Exactly. Now, directly beneath the boss, managing the broader strategies and keeping things running, you have the underbosses.
And here, those would be the vice presidents of the organization.
Right. But the real operational power, the people who actually control the territories and manage the flow of money on the streets, those are the capos.
And in the soccer organization, the capos were the members of the executive committee.
The exco.
Right. Widely referred to as the exco. This was a highly exclusive, incredibly powerful group of exactly 24 men representing different geographic regions around the world.
And these 24 men held the ultimate, totally unchecked power to vote on the single most lucrative decision in global sports.
Where the World Cup would be held.
Exactly. So the XXO members are the capos, ruling their regional fiefdoms. And this is where Joseph Sepp Blatter's leadership style, I mean, if you can even call that, truly shines.
Right, because he operated like a sophisticated corporate firewall.
Yes. He's like a classic mob boss who keeps his own hands completely clean. He didn't need to go out and negotiate the bribes himself. He didn't need to dirty his hands collecting envelopes of cash in hotel lobbies.
No, his singular focus was just maintaining his position as the boss.
And to do that, he simply demanded absolute unwavering loyalty from the capos, because the XXCO members were the ones who voted in the presidential elections.
And how do you guarantee the loyalty of 24 incredibly ambitious, very powerful men?
You pay them a lot.
Exactly. You ensure they have unrestricted access to unimaginable wealth within their own territories. When Joseph Sepp Blatter campaigned for the presidency in 1998, he didn't run on a platform of anti-corruption.
Definitely not.
He ran on a platform of aggressive wealth distribution. He promised that every single country's domestic soccer association would receive $250,000 every single year just for operating costs.
Plus another $400,000 earmarked for new facilities and development. He essentially promised to open the treasury and turn the money spigot on full blast.
Right. He made sure the capos had massive, unquestioned slush funds to manage in their regions.
And as long as the capos were getting rich and expanding their own local influence and facing absolutely zero financial audits from headquarters, they would continually vote to keep the boss in power.
It is the perfect patronage system. Every man was building his own regional empire, but the overarching structure perfectly protected the top.
But there is a massive inherent flaw in a patronage system of this magnitude, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. To keep paying out these staggering sums to hundreds of national associations, you need an insatiable, constantly growing influx of revenue.
The beast always needs more food.
Exactly. And that desperate need to guarantee massive future revenue streams is what drove the organization into the most audacious, geopolitically explosive backroom deals in the history of international sports.
Which is the perfect transition to the year 2010.
Oh, 2010.
Yeah, this is the moment where this whole narrative elevates from internal sports marketing kickbacks to just straight up high-stakes international geopolitical warfare.
Let's set the stage. In 2010, the global economic landscape was highly volatile.
Yeah, the world was still reeling from the devastating 2008 financial crisis.
Right. Corporate sponsors were incredibly nervous, television networks were tightening their budgets across the board, and the governing body of soccer looked at this landscape and they panicked.
They needed to lock in long-term, guaranteed financial commitments from their mega sponsors to ensure the whole patronage system wouldn't just collapse.
So to solve this, they make an absolutely unprecedented, highly controversial administrative decision.
Historically, the organization voted on the host of the next World Cup, one tournament at a time, right? To concentrate the leverage.
Exactly. But in 2010, they announced they were going to award the hosting rights for both the 2018 tournament and the 2022 tournament simultaneously.
At the exact same EXCO meeting.
Yes. They thought they were projecting long-term stability, but instead, they basically created the largest bribery marketplace the world had ever seen.
Because suddenly, the stakes were just astronomical.
You had the wealthiest and most powerful countries on Earth vying for the two biggest cultural and economic events of the next decade, all lobbying the exact same 24 capos at the exact same time.
Right, so the 2018 tournament was officially earmarked for a European host nation, while the 2022 tournament was open to bidders from the rest of the world.
Let's examine the 2018 conspiracy first, because it introduces a brand new kind of player to this game, the nation-state.
Yeah, because the winner of the 2018 bid, which shocked a lot of traditionalists, was Russia.
Right, and the driving architectural force behind this victory was the Russian president, Vladimir Putin.
Now, the evolution of Vladimir Putin's perspective on international sports is highly revealing, isn't it?
It really is. Initially, geopolitical analysts noted that he didn't seem particularly invested in the mechanics of a World Cup bid. It just seemed beneath the immediate concerns of the Kremlin.
Right, he had bigger fish to fry.
But that calculus drastically changed after Russia successfully campaigned to host the 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi.
Vladimir Putin realized the immense, almost unparalleled soft power value of global sports.
And soft power is the critical concept here. If you're listening, think about what it means. Hosting a World Cup forces foreign diplomats, heads of state, and millions of tourists to come to your territory under a banner of international unity.
It provides this phenomenal opportunity to dramatically boost a nation's global image.
Furthermore, it serves as a massive, highly effective domestic distraction. For a leader managing controversial political maneuvers, or crackdowns on political dissidents, or aggressive territorial ambitions.
A month-long festival of nationalistic pride is incredibly useful.
Precisely. But practically speaking, the Russian bid had massive, glaring logistical problems.
Yeah, Russia is the largest country on Earth by landmass. The travel distances between potential host cities were enormous. They needed massive infrastructure overhauls.
And their domestic soccer leagues were plagued by infrastructure issues as well. On paper, it was a highly risky proposition for the governing body.
So how did they convince the ex-Qatari to hand them the crown jewel of sports?
This is where we have to look at the intelligence gathered surrounding the bid. The English Bid Committee, who were fiercely competing against Russia for 2018, actually hired a former British intelligence officer named Christopher Steele. Yes. They hired him to conduct deep opposition research on their rivals. And the intelligence Christopher Steele gathered suggested a highly sophisticated, state-coordinated influence campaign.
Okay, so what was the working theory?
The theory outlined in these intelligence files was that Vladimir Putin did not want the Russian state directly implicated in bribery. So instead, he allegedly instructed a network of wealthy Russian oligarchs to do whatever was necessary to secure the required votes.
Wow. So the ultimate privatization of bribery.
Exactly. The government keeps its hands totally clean, but relies on billionaires whose fortunes exist entirely at the pleasure of the state to facilitate these shadowy transactions.
And the intelligence alleged that whatever it took included highly creative forms of compensation, right?
Very creative.
We are not just talking about offshore wire transfers. We are talking about allegations of oligarchs offering incredibly valuable museum-quality paintings to individual members of the executive committee.
Just handing over priceless art in exchange for their support.
Now, we absolutely must note that the Russian government categorically and fiercely denied all of these allegations.
Right, they called them completely baseless smears by bitter rivals.
And internal ethics investigations by the soccer governing body later cleared the specific individuals accused.
However, the international intelligence community remained highly skeptical. The sheer timing and nature of these alleged gifts to EXO members raised massive geopolitical red flags.
It demonstrated that state intelligence apparatuses were now actively monitoring the activities of sports administrators.
Because the stakes were that high.
But if the 2018 vote to Russia raised geopolitical red flags, the race for the 2022 World Cup set off absolute air raid sirens across the globe.
Oh, without a doubt.
The 2022 race featured several heavy hitters, including Australia and Japan. But the absolute, unquestioned frontrunner, the bid that made the most financial and logistical sense, was the United States.
The United States bid was an absolute juggernaut.
Right. They had hosted the tournament previously in 1994, which, remarkably, still holds the record as the most attended World Cup in history.
The U.S. didn't need to build anything. They already possessed massive existing infrastructure. They presented 18 state-of-the-art stadiums with an average capacity of 78,000 seats.
Ready for immediate use.
Exactly. They had infinite hotel capacity, sophisticated transportation networks, and this massive, diverse, multicultural population that basically guaranteed sold-out, highly profitable games for every single visiting nation.
And the United States recognized that this was a political campaign as much as a sporting one. They brought out the absolute highest level of celebrity and political firepower imaginable.
I remember this. Their final presentation to the Exco featured former President Bill Clinton, legendary Hollywood actor Morgan Freeman, and a highly polished video message from the sitting president, Barack Obama.
It was a bid perfectly designed to project inevitability, immense profit, and total security.
And then you have their primary rival, the state of Qatar.
Right. If the U.S. bid was defined by existing infrastructure and guaranteed massive profits, the Qatari bid was defined by nearly insurmountable physical and logistical obstacles.
The contrast could not have been more extreme.
Let's spend some time thoroughly analyzing the reality of the Qatari bid as it stood back in 2010. Qatar is a sovereign nation on the Arabian Peninsula, roughly the size of the American state of Connecticut.
Very small.
Yeah. And at the time of the bid, they did not possess a single stadium with the 80,000-seat capacity required by the organization to host a World Cup final match.
Not one. If they won the bid, they would have to undertake a construction project of almost mythical proportions. They would basically have to build an entirely new city in the desert.
Constructing 9 giant, futuristic stadiums completely from scratch.
And that construction had to account for a massive, massive environmental barrier. The World Cup is traditionally played in the months of June and July.
And in Qatar, the summer temperatures during those months routinely reach a staggering 122 degrees Fahrenheit.
That is 50 degrees Celsius. It is physically, medically dangerous for elite athletes to play high-intensity, 90-minute sports in that heat.
Let alone for 1 million international tourists to be walking around in it.
Exactly. So Qatar promised to develop revolutionary open-air cooling technologies to basically air-condition entire open-roof stadiums.
Which a lot of engineers at the time considered highly improbable, if not entirely impossible, on that massive scale.
But beyond the logistical and environmental hurdles, there were massive, glaring, deeply troubling human rights issues associated with building this infrastructure.
Right, because to construct these mythical stadiums in the desert, Qatar relied heavily on a highly controversial migrant labor system known as the kafala system.
We really need to explain the mechanics of the kafala system because it is entirely central to why this bid was so globally controversial.
Yeah, please break that down.
So the kafala system is a framework utilized in several Gulf states where the state effectively delegates the legal responsibility for migrant workers to private employers, known as sponsors. Under this system, the employers possessed near total control over the lives of their workers, who were largely imported from South Asia.
Right, like India, Nepal, Bangladesh.
Yes. The employers dictated where the workers lived, usually in these isolated labor camps. They controlled how much the workers were paid.
And most critically, under the strictest versions of this system, the workers could not change jobs, resign, or even legally leave the country without their employer's explicit written permission.
Which is just staggering. Human rights organizations globally were screaming from the rooftops. They argued that awarding a massive, time-sensitive, multi-billion-dollar infrastructure project to a country utilizing the kafala system would inevitably result in horrific labor abuses.
Many watchdogs explicitly equated the system to modern-day indentured servitude.
So you have the executive committee, the capos, sitting in a room looking at two options for 2022.
You have the United States, completely ready to go, existing infrastructure, perfect climate for the sport, guaranteeing billions in secure revenue.
And you have Qatar, the size of Connecticut, facing 122-degree heat, possessing 0 adequate stadiums, and relying on a labor system globally condemned by human rights groups.
And yet, on December 6, 2010, the boss, Sepp Blatter, walks up to the podium, opens the envelope, and announces that Qatar has won the rights to host the 2022 World Cup.
The announcement sent a physical shockwave through the room.
It defied all standard business logic, all basic administrative sense, and all logistical realities.
According to numerous reports, when the American delegation got back to their luxury hotel suite, former President Bill Clinton was so profoundly furious and bewildered by the result that he grabbed a heavy ornament from a bedside table and hurled it violently at a mirror, shattering it.
Wow. I mean, it just made absolutely no sense to anyone analyzing the bids on their technical merits.
Unless, of course, you looked away from the logistics and looked directly at the flow of money.
Right, because what the state of Qatar lacked in existing facilities and soccer history, they made up for with what investigators allege was the most sophisticated, heavily funded, and systematically executed bribery campaign in the history of international sports.
And the architect, the mastermind behind this alleged operation, was a powerful Qatari billionaire named Mohammed bin Hammam.
Mohammed bin Hammam. He is a highly critical figure in this narrative.
Extremely critical. He was a billionaire businessman who had amassed an absolute fortune in the construction industry. He specifically led a massive conglomerate called Qemco, which was responsible for building many of the gleaming new skyscrapers in Doha.
And crucially, he was also a sitting member of the powerful EXCO.
Right, he was one of the 24 capos.
Now, officially, he was not a member of the Qatari bid committee, but behind the scenes, operating in the shadows, he was allegedly pulling every single string imaginable.
Utilizing his vast personal wealth and his global network to ensure his home country won the bid.
So let's look at the mechanics of this. How does a billionaire actually buy a World Cup? Because it's not as crude as, handing over a briefcase full of unmarked bills in a dark alley.
No, the modern syndicate requires luxury, plausible deniability, and complex financial routing.
Right.
The execution was incredibly systematic. Mohammed bin Hammam essentially functioned as a one-man, globally financed lobbying firm. He organized highly secretive, entirely private meetings all over the world with his fellow XXO members and other deeply influential regional soccer officials.
And he treated these officials to absolute unmitigated luxury.
Flying them out, putting them up in five-star hotels, hosting them on private luxury cruises. And during these deeply comfortable meetings, he would ask these officials a seemingly benevolent, simple question.
He'd ask, what do you need to grow the sport in your home country?
Exactly. And in return for his extreme, quote-unquote, generosity in fulfilling those needs, he would simply ask for their quiet support for Qatar's bid.
And the financial follow-through was staggering. Shortly after these luxurious meetings, the regional officials would begin receiving massive, unexplained wire transfers.
We are talking about anywhere from $10,000 to $200,000 per transaction.
But you cannot just wire $200,000 directly from a Qatari bank to a soccer official in Africa without triggering massive international banking alerts, right?
Right.
You need a slush fund.
Exactly. To hide the origin of these payments, Mohammed bin Hammam allegedly utilized the incredibly complex corporate structure of his construction company, Qemco. He would route the bribes through Qemco's corporate accounts, disguising them as consulting fees or construction development grants.
And in some of the most brazen instances discovered by investigators, he allegedly even routed the bribe money through his own daughter's private personal bank account to further obscure the paper trail.
Which is just wild. When investigators finally tallied it all up, they suggested he had systematically doled out roughly $5 million in direct, untraceable bribes to secure the necessary block of votes.
But cash wasn't his only weapon. Mohammed bin Hammam was also a master of political leverage. He allegedly orchestrated a massive, explicitly illegal scheme known as the vote swap.
The vote swap. This is exactly where the organization's unprecedented decision to hold the 2018 and 2022 votes simultaneously completely backfired and created a monster.
Yeah, explain how he leveraged that.
Well, Mohammed bin Hammam realized he could leverage the 2018 race to win the 2022 race.